Welcome back to What's Up There podcast. I am your active and attractive host, Uno Not Dos. You must never seen the game up close. I want to thank each and every person that has just clicked this video. You are a part of the family. But to be a part of the set, you got to come to patreon.com. It's Up There podcast. I'm going to put you down. I'm going to put you straight down, right? Those that want to be kind of protected from some of the BS and kind of meet like-minded individuals that may not agree on everything, agree, disagree, but are able to have that discourse, a safe place. Patreon.com, It's Up There podcast. I'll see you there. 2025, we have big things we want to do with the platform as well as with our Patreon. Again, from the center of my soul, thank each and every person that is really, really a fan of me, right? Not just a passive listener of It's Up There podcast, like the people that's really like, yo, I really rock with Loon. Like some of my Patreon people, they let me know, man, like, hey, I really rock with you, brother. I rock with a lot of people, and you're like the number one person that I come to, right? And so before we get into the Young Thug thing, you know, I always talk business with y'all. I talk content, I talk position, I talk market value, market research, and we talk analytics and we deal with information, right? So far as me, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, Loon, do you need to hire some people like co-hosts? Do I want to do like a different show and have some co-hosts and see how that plays out? A lot of the fans really enjoy me and Umar's back and forth, right? I can probably arrange for me and Umar to have a show, monthly show, a weekly show, you know, episodic season. You know, I would definitely want to have a conversation about a deal or taking that show somewhere, but I can definitely see that being something that I can do, but not even just with Umar. Like, when you see me next to Umar, my job is to try to give him that runway to have some of the good conversations that, you know, gives the culture information. What I notice about the internet, and we're going to talk about some of the internet's perception, how they play into things today, right? Because we see with Young Thug being released, some kind of way Lil Baby trends. All y'all in the internet land and social media world, we'll get to all of that in a minute and have a discourse about that. But the internet is a weird place, right? So with the Umar second annual It's Up There podcast live event featuring Dr. Umar at TSU homecoming weekend, you will see where, you know, for my fans, and you know me, I'm not somebody that make excuses. People that listen to me, you know, I'm always like, get it done regardless. Get it done. Like I'm going through fights behind the scenes all the time trying to figure things out, asking for information and intel. Right? Because my computer is computing and I'm putting together things. You know, if you feed the computer data and then it's like I take a picture and then I take it into the room and watch it develop. And so the picture in my mind develops in real time in front of me, and I'm able to, it's almost like I'm able to see things coming, man. But with the Dr. Umar interview, right? People don't even know this. I got so ill 3 days before that. If you notice, I'm on stage, and even if you pay attention, I guess because my voice is in a certain tone, you maybe can't hear it. But 3 days before the event, I was extremely tired. I'm sorry, 3 days before the event, I was extremely sick. And so instead of canceling the event on all the people that bought tickets, Umar's down there, everybody's looking forward to this on TSU weekend, and TSU is there. All these different individuals are a part of this. I went ahead and fought through that. Now, me being sick on stage with Dr. Umar was a scenario for me that I enjoyed. I think, you know, we had a great conversation. But I just want my real fans to have that tidbit of information, right? You know, that day I wasn't my best self because literally I was sick. And I got sick from my son, got sick from school. You know how that works, right? Just being a father. But of course, man, we're proud of what we have, and hopefully you guys enjoy. If you have not watched that, go watch that. It's up there, podcast. Dr. Umar Johnson's second annual. He talks about Oprah, Kamala Harris. Wait till you hear this next part, though. Gets super wild, and you really will enjoy that. One of the best conversations I've had all year. And I know the fans are looking forward to it. All right, let's get into what everybody is really here for. We're here to talk about Young Thug being released. For those unaware, Young Thug has been in a trial facing racketeering charges, lead a kingpin of what prosecutors in the Fulton County District are calling a gang. This gang, to some, is known as a record label, and it's YSL. They've been able to paint lyrics. They've been able to bring in witnesses. They've been able to do a multitude of things that was considered unfair to the naked eye. But in courts, they was actually using these things to try to nail this individual to the cross. Today, we get into a lot of different things. Young Thug took a plea deal. We're going to watch that plea be took. We're going to get into the stipulations surrounding the plea. Is it a setup? Is it not a setup? How does Young Thug move around the industry at this point? Do they get back in court a year, 2 years in and say, look, we found it extremely hard for him not to do certain things that's on this agreement? So we're going to get into some of these things on the pod today, right? I want you guys to stay tuned as we get to it. Be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to dive into one of the more historical cases in American history and probably number 1, 2, or 3 in hip-hop. We're going to get into Young Thug's plea deal, his release conditions. We're peeling back the layers on everything you need to know about this case, from the strict probation terms to the controversy surrounding his restrictions and obligations. Grab a seat, stay tuned. We're going to break this down. Before we watch this video of the proceedings this evening as it pertains to Young Thug taking his plea deal, I want to take it back a few days. Slime Life Shorty got on the stand, said a few things, put the state in a position, broke the case down even more because he mentioned someone was locked up. And for people who are not familiar with how that works, there's a reason that everyone dresses out in court, and you will see Thug in regular clothes and all of the people that's charged with very heinous crimes in regular clothes. Its practice is initiated to try to ensure that the jury does not discriminate against the defendant and see him as a criminal because of the uniform that he's already in, which would be the county blues or whatever color that they wear in that state. And so you see everybody dressed out. And so when I seen them have to stop the case with Slime Life Shorty, I knew that the case was breaking down. Some of my insiders hit me and they say, yo, the deal that she came with, they're not taking it. It was a scenario where they were uncomfortable with some of the stipulations. So I went to my platforms and, yo, looks like there's not going to be a deal for Young Thug. And then as we see subsequently after that, he did take the deal. Here's what's interesting. Now, there were people arguing with me that the plea deals were hurting Young Thug when those other guys were taking plea deals. And I was trying to get people to see the other side, which we're all speculating, right? But I was saying, well, I don't think those plea deals affect him because what I see happening is the case breaking down in our face, right? So after the state has spent millions of dollars trying to sustain this trial, with investigation, payroll, just man hours, there's no way that halfway through this trial they want to stop and start to offer pleas. This only happens when there's been a breakdown in the case, right? When something has went wrong. And so I was trying to explain to them that I don't think these pleas are bothering Thug. I think they're going to Thug with a plea as well. If you watch this case over the last year and a half, I think there's a record number of mistrials that's been filed in this trial just from the prosecutor's incompetence. You know, it's just been a very slippery trial. But now that Thug is out, let's take a look at the plea. I mean, this plea was jam-packed with stuff. And it's kind of long, but I do want to watch it with y'all, man, and we're going to react to it. You're going to watch Brian Steele walk us through the entire plea. Pay attention. The interesting thing you're going to see in this video we're about to watch is that the state was literally willing to give this dude 15 years probation. But because of the stipulations, they refused and then did a counter offer of 45 years. And so what you're going to see is compelled cooperation. And they try to wrap the cooperation around a plea and attach it to his freedom. Pay attention. Let's watch the first clip. Roll the tape.
No one can guarantee anything to do with parole or the Department of Corrections or the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that if you are sentenced to confinement in the Georgia Department of Corrections, no one can guarantee parole.
Yes. You can say yes.
Well,
She asked you, you answer it.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Parole.
Your Honor, may I allow Mr. Williams time to finish signing the indictment?
Okay.
So, yes. Now,
Your Honor, with permission, may I approach with a member of Mr. Williams' team?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, do you understand that this is a non-negotiated plea of guilty, and that since your guilty plea is a blind plea or a non-negotiated plea, the state is making a recommendation of sentencing to the court, notwithstanding the fact that this is a blind plea? You understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Williams, were you aware of the state's previous offer that was turned down prior to your making this non-negotiated plea?
yes.
All right. And Your Honor, at this time, the state is making a recommendation of 45 years with 25 to serve in custody, followed by 20 on probation, subject to the special requirements of 1615-4, the gang statute.
All right, and do you want to break down for me what your recommended sentence on each count is?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is recommending on count 1, 5 years to serve. Count 56, 20 years to serve consecutively to count 1. Count 57, 5 years of probation to serve consecutively to count 56. Count 58, 10 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57. Count 59, 5 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57 and 58. Count 60, 5 years of probation concurrent with count 57, 58, and 59. Count 61, 5 years of probation consecutive to count 57. And count 62, 10 years of probation consecutive to count 61.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Williams, did you discuss the state's previous offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and so we're all clear that we're talking about the same thing. Can you put what the state's previous offer was on the record for me, please?
I can, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The state's previous offer was a total of 43 years with 20 to serve, 20 years, 5 years to serve on count 56, commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation. On count 58, the sentence was 10 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to count 56. Count 59 was 3 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56 and 58. Count 60 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, and 59. Count 61 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, 59, and 60.
In Rutherford County, prices are rising and traffic's getting worse. And Mike Sparks is part of the problem. Mike helped pass a law to charge tolls on I-24, all while giving out billions in corporate handouts. We can't afford more Mike Sparks.
Show your daughter how much you love her with this beautiful gift. It says, "To my daughter, never forget that I love you forever. I hope that you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, remember..."
Was that the entirety of what the sentence was?
No, Your Honor.
I mean, I
still
know there were
reading.
special conditions, so y'all were
There
going to
are.
null pros,
Yeah,
1
yeah.
and 62?
Yes, as part of the recommended sentence, in exchange for the defendant agreeing to the special conditions that we asked the court to impose, the state was willing to null pros count 1, count 57, and count 62.
Okay, and then all of that consecutive to the probation, that was going to be what we call backloaded, and what were y'all proposing with regard to that, since it was going to follow the probated sentence?
The total sentence was 43 years to serve, with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 23 years in prison, which would have been served in confinement, except that if defendant had complied with the special conditions of probation imposed as part of this sentence, the backloaded portion of defendant's sentence would have been commuted. However, should defendant had violated any special condition of probation within the first 15 years of his sentence, his probated sentence would have immediately been revoked, and he would have been required.
It would have been, yes, Your Honor, Mr. Williams.
Of special condition sentence, and what y'all had, I know you didn't reach agreement, but y'all, that's what the last offer had been, with, of course, a bunch of special conditions, which I guess is where the hang-up was. I don't know.
Right. Defendant did not want to agree to the special conditions.
All right. Is that basically your understanding too, Mr.
Yes, Your
Steele
Honor.
and
It would
Mr.
have been,
Adams?
yes, Your Honor, Mr. Williams would have been released today for 15 years on probation. If he successfully completes that probation, then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation as well as 23 years, as the court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting upon.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Love.
Okay. And Mr. Williams, were you aware of that previous offer as well as all of the requirements that that offer would have entailed?
Yes.
Okay. And had you had enough time to discuss that particular offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
All right.
The previous one?
The previous offer.
Yeah.
Do you understand that the court can impose any sentence authorized by law, including a higher sentence than that recommended by the state, up to the maximum sentence on each charge in this indictment? Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you enter into a non-negotiated plea, you do not have a right to withdraw your plea once the sentence has been announced?
Yes.
Do you understand that this is a guilty plea which is permanently recorded on your criminal history?
Yes.
Do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including in the federal courts?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
I'm not on probation.
Okay, so you're not on
If you were on probation,
Yes.
but if you're not, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Do you understand that if you are placed on probation of any kind by this court, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probations without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence the court imposes?
Yes, I know.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, and the Department of Corrections or Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that no one can guarantee parole no matter what anyone has told you?
Yes.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction?
And I guess that's why I want to stop and have a conversation at. So I guess my conversation is, can the feds come pick them up now? So the last couple of sentences that she read in the plea agreement, I think, makes me ask that question, like, can the feds do something? But I think Brian Steele and Keith Adams were very strategic in the kind of plea that they took. You're going to hear them explain that in just a second, but I think the overarching point we can take from it is what? It's like he basically pled it no contest to the things that maybe the feds may have interest in. Because basically, if you pled guilty to that in the state, I think the feds will 100% can use that guilty plea. And so these are some of the adverse reactions. And we're going to get into this after Thug speaks and shit. But you got a scenario where, you got out of this, but we set you up for damn near failure. And that's what a lot of the internet is speaking about. It's like, hey, these stipulations, it's going to be hard for you. They damn near controlling you. But if you've been in the judicial system, you know, sometimes, especially with the kind of money Thug got, yo, all right, cool. But in 2 years, ain't no trouble. We'll go back in front of judge. Yo, loosen up. 9 times out of 10, they'll loosen up if he's doing everything he supposed to do.
For example, your guilty plea may affect the right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or if you use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of up to 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty of this nature between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams? The court, again, will hear that as this trial continues. The recommendation that the state previously made prior to us reaching this point was made with the hope that Mr. Williams would agree to certain special conditions of probation that we asked him to adhere to, and that he would take ownership and responsibility for being the leader of YSL. Given that those negotiations have broken down, we are asking that the court sentence Mr. Williams as we have asked earlier. And prior to the court imposing a sentence, we would ask that Ms. Shawana Edmonds, who is the mother of Mr. Thomas, be allowed an opportunity to make an impact statement. And that is all that we have, unless the court has questions.
Okay, well, given that Mr. Williams is not charged with the murder of Mr. Thomas, I don't think that is applicable here.
I checked on that, Your Honor, with respect to count 1. As a co-conspirator, Mr. Williams is responsible for all of the acts of the other co-conspirators, the overt acts. The overt act of the murder of Donovan Thomas is one of those acts.
I know, and this trial is not complete, and so y'all have not yet proven that. Not to mention that you dismissed the murder charge against one of the co-defendants who already pled, so.
Not for that case, Your Honor. That was Mr. Drinks.
Okay.
We have not dismissed any.
All right. Well, if there is a conviction on the RICO or murder count following the close of this trial, that would be the appropriate time for the victim impact statement to be made. All right, Mr. Steele or if there is a conviction.
Victim impact. And so the victim impact statement part of this is really important because if Nutt's mom was able to give a victim impact statement, then the court has to take that in consideration if they would allowed it. And let me say this, R.I.P. to Nutt. I send my condolences to his family. My job as someone in media is to be non-biased and to deliver the information as well as some entertainment, some edutainment, just to make things and try to make things digestible for the next wave, the next level, and people that's just trying to make it throughout their day. And I think oftentimes you'll see us cover Young Thug and what he's been through over the last 2 years as it pertains to Fulton County and how it intertwines with hip-hop, and it can feel one-sided. And if I'm being honest, it probably has been one-sided. You know, the vast majority of the media has covered this, in my opinion, in a way that it needed to be covered, but it shines light on Thug that wasn't shined on Lucci and his scenario, as well as Nutt. And I think oftentimes in this game, at least with me covering this case, I have not been someone that has said that enough. Like, yo, salute to Lucci. Yo, salute R.I.P. Nutt. Condolences to his family. Just to let these brothers know that we all black, we all in this together. We go through things, we digest those things, we examine those things, we try to explain those things, but we all are one heartbeat. And so hopefully one day, those dudes cross paths and they do what they need to do. But the victim impact statement was very deep because, again, I guess the judge is saying, listen, if this murder meant that much to you, then maybe you should have kept the case going. Why are you taking a plea? I want you guys to understand a plea can't come from Brian Steele, can't come from the people that's charged. Right? And even if it does come from the people that's charged, ultimately the prosecutors got to accept it. And they're millions of dollars in. Why would they let the kingpin go and then try to slide a victim impact statement in there on a murder that he hasn't been convicted of? It shows you more of the games that's being played. I just want people to really, really understand that.
A man who said nothing except, I don't recall. And then they put in his prior recorded jail calls. That man was taken, his name was Mr. Bean, B-E-A-N. He was taken to Grady Hospital, and he was spoken with by a detective. The state vehemently accused me of lying to the jury, that the man never went, Mr. Bean was never taken to Grady Hospital, and that somehow I planted on him to say something on a recording where he said, the reason I implicated Jeffrey Williams is because the police told me that it would be easier for me. Then I had to go through the CAD reports and show that Mr. Bean was in fact taken to Grady Hospital, and Mr. Bean on recording told Detective Quinn, who of course told the truth, yes, when I spoke to the detective previously, I did lie. Then what the state doesn't tell the jury is that there's another man in the car. He is shot at the scene. He's arrested. He pled guilty. His name is Fred Prethro, P-R-E-T-H-O. And Mr. Prethro is in the Georgia State Prison System, easy to find. And Mr. Prethro was in Grady Hospital also, unfortunately suffering from a gunshot wound. And you can hear the medical equipment behind him. And Detective Williams came in and was recording the whole conversation and said how many people were in the car. And Mr. Prethro names the people. Adrian Bean, who's the gentleman I just said, himself, and Walter Murphy. Are you sure there weren't a fourth person in the car? No, the three of us. The state doesn't call that person. The state does call Detective Williams. So I wanted to ask and inquire on that. The state, to obstruct, if that's obstruction, asked the predecessor court to prohibit me from getting into the fact of any conversation that would have impeached another witness. It's fine. Fred Prethro's on my witness list as well as the detective, and I have the recordings. In addition to that, Walter Murphy gave a statement while in the hospital, and his statement is very interesting. It's two different police reports, signed the same date, which is September 11th of 2013, and on the first 7 lines of the police report, they're identical. Then all of a sudden, when it gets to, on the right-hand police report, it says Mr. Murphy stated that there were 3 people, I believe, I have to go back, in the vehicle. On the other police report, it states Mr. Murphy stated there were 4 people. There's no reason that they should be different. They're both signed the same. The state doesn't call that officer at all. I tried to ask Mr. Murphy about it. The state objects, and the predecessor judge sustained the objection. Mr. Williams was not involved in the Mr. Dotson. Miss Bennett, that was Mother's Day, May 12, 2013. She reports allegedly an armed robbery. The detective who testified here and investigated stated he never took out arrest warrants for Mr. Williams. And he wrote in his police report, Miss Bennett is not truthful. That is the case that the state is talking about. The state then, there was Brady evidence that they don't turn over, and we find out about it in court after they arrest Miss Bennett because they say she's not cooperating, and it comes out that she told the prosecution over and over again that this did not happen the way that she reported it, and she doesn't remember. As to Donovan Thomas, and Mr. Williams has nothing but empathy, sympathy, and sorrow. They were friends. It is a lie. What the prosecution put before this jury is a lie. What happened here is the prosecution comes up with a theory because they need a motive, they think. I know you don't need a motive in reality to prove a murder case or any other case, but they wanted a motive. So they made it where Mr. Williams and a gentleman named Rich Homie Quan, his name is Mr. Lamar, he's a performer, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were close. There are public documents, recordings, Mr. Lamar being interviewed almost every year, and then he talks about his time with this band or group called Rich Gang, and he says every year up to this past year, he, God forbid, we can't call him as a witness, how close he is to Mr. Williams.
Story time. Brian Steele and me spoke about the interview I had with Rich Homie Quan, R.I.P. Rich Homie Quan, and how he expressed his sentiments to Thug. And so you hear him referencing that. I know for 100% fact that he's speaking about that interview I had with Rich Homie Quan, because me and Brian Steele spoke about that. I was always interested in how the state was going to make their case that Thug and Rich Homie Quan had issue. And so what you're looking at is Brian Steele, he about to throw young Thug is throwing himself on the mercy of the court. See, right before this, Thug had to take a minute to think about it, man. Do I really want to do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, do I want to do this? Because they can give me 30 years, and once you put a guilty down, you can't take that back. And by Brian Steele saying, yo, we're winning the case. We're up right now. You got 3 more months, 100. You got about 100 days left, 115, 120 days left. And we're winning. But you don't know how things are going to go. And they're talking about letting him go, but with 15 years. Pay attention.
Tried to make it that Mr. Williams and Rich Homie Quan are enemies because Rich Homie Quan will not sign with a record label that has nothing to do with Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams doesn't sign to that record label. That record label is owned by a gentleman named Brian Williams, also goes by Birdman, wildly successful. He started Drake's career. He started Mr. Dwayne Carter, performer known as Lil Wayne's career. He started Nicki Minaj's career, just fabulous, powerful person, well-respected in the industry. But the state wants it to be that Donovan Thomas interceded and would not let Rich Homie Quan sign to Mr. Brian Birdman Williams, and that is the reason that Jeffrey Williams had a feud and killed Donovan Thomas. Your Honor, what the evidence would really show if we kept going to trial, and I could tell you that Mr. Adams and I never thought we'd be in front of this honorable court. We always thought it would go all the way through trial. Was the state is saying that Rich Homie Quan and Jeffrey Williams don't speak since the fall, and they have a bad relationship the fall of 2014. We would have shown, and we served on the state, December 15, 2014, Jeffrey Williams in a private plane with Mr. Lamar or Rich Homie Quan, and they are high-fiving and laughing with each other. That is on audio video. There's a man who the state hasn't called yet, Mr. Martinez Arnold, also known as Duke. It's on the state's witness list. He's represented by the Honorable Ashley Merchant. He's on that plane as well. He would have identified the item, and he would have testified that Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were very close in December 2014. Then on December 29th of 2014, Mr. Williams, Mr. Rich Homie Quan, Mr. Arnold, others were at Brian Williams' home in Miami, Florida. There is a posting by Mr. Lamar, Rich Homie Quan, and a picture of Mr. Arnold and Mr. Lamar, and they say, Mr. Lamar says, "This is my number one man, Duke," or something to that effect. We would have put that into evidence. In addition to that, Your Honor, on December 8th, 2 days before Mr. Thomas, God forbid, was killed, Mr. Williams is with Mr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Sledge and Brian Williams in Brian Williams' tour bus outside of a fabulous entertainer, artist, Mr. Clifford Harris, T.I.'s studio, and at that time, they were very close. But you also have the detective with the gang unit, Detective Underwood. I asked her within the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, did you do any, and she was on the gang unit the entire time, including today. And I asked her, do you have any evidence about Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas being close friends? And she said, yes. Of course, I knew that. I said, how about in January of 2015, close to the time of Mr. Thomas's death? She said, yes, they were close friends. Mr. Michael Sprinkle, he's a deputy district attorney in the Fulton County DA's office. He has a recording with Mr. Treadwell. You've heard the name O.G. Bentley. And in that, they're going through the evidence. And Mr. Treadwell, it's important because he has a child, two actually, with Mr. Thomas's sister. So he's family. And Mr. Sprinkle states this is 2018, this is after the rental car, this is after all of the interviews of Mr. Copeland, this is after the interviews of Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle's in some of those interviews with Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle on tape, on recording, states, I do not know why anybody thinks Jeffrey Williams is involved in this. He and Donovan Thomas were close friends. It makes no sense to anyone. And Mr. Williams was never arrested, never charged, even in this. In addition to that, Your Honor, the state talks about the fact that Mr. Williams takes people to Miami. Have gone further in Miami, and security and Mr. Williams' lyrics are offensive. Mr. Williams has tens of thousands of recordings. On our witness list, we are bringing in all of his people, his recording artists, his engineers, his managers, his record label, and an expert, the Honorable Dr. Eric Nielsen, to talk about how Mr. Williams creates his music. His music is then changed around and merged. Mr. Williams, some of the lyrics you just heard are not even uttered by Mr. Williams. The state has no idea when these lyrics were made. Some of them were made before the shooting of Donovan Thomas that the state is saying this applies to Donovan Thomas with the They are so far afield of where we need to be when we are trying to, God forbid, take somebody's liberty, Your Honor. The state...
Brian Steele continued to show what he would call contradictions that the state had set forth throughout trial and plead his case as to why Young Thug should get a favorable sentence. Because you got to remember, when you do this blind plea, it's not necessarily up to the state. They make a recommendation. Your lawyer makes a recommendation. Ultimately, the judge that has been presiding over the trial considers both recommendations, and they have to set the actual standard and the terms of the probation or the prison sentence. And so Brian Steele went on and on. I don't want to continue to play it all because it'll just be dragging this out, and you can find that video anywhere online. Got to remember what Brian Steele has been through with Thug too. I think this is a good time to, give Brian Steele and all of these guys their flowers, because they've stood strong. In particular, Brian Steele, he's been arrested. He's been held in contempt. He's been up for hours and hours. He's been at the courthouse, at the jailhouse. He's rolled with Thug, the real deal Brian Steele, along with his protege and partner, Adam Smith.
Wrong.
I think that's his name. And his protege, Keith Adams. Because Keith had an opportunity to try to continue the case and get his shine, but he stepped up and said, you know what, if you're sending Brian Steele to jail, I hold the same position, so give me a seal ready as well, and we will not continue to try. You got to remember, them folks stood on business for dude, my n***. And I like how Charlemagne said this, because it is important that we have separated ourselves from these actions, but the in me does look at Thug and say, yo, he didn't say a word, him or Lucci. But Thug in particular, they brought his homeboys in there one by one. Was testifying and getting out of court and saying that they love him. Was going in there and testifying on that boy and then tweeting to the world that they love him. Helping the people that's trying to nail him to the cross, but the entire time saying that they appreciate him, they love him, they stood for him and rolled with him. I wonder how he feels, right? Because you got to remember, Thug was a dude before he caught these charges. He kind of understood the internet and trolling and all of that. I believe he look at it now and say, it done gone too far. I wonder what it feels like for them to be celebrating your homeboy that the state put on the stand to testify against you. Now guess who gone to jail for nothing? Montoon gone to jail. If he ain't had no plea, he shouldn't even took no plea. Don't y'all get it mistaken. Brian Steele don't necessarily look at this like a win. It's cool. He loved Thug, so he appreciate that. But I done been to jail and everything. I wanted to whoop them about this. Them folk tried to lock me up about this, man. I wanted to beat them. Right? It felt like they really wanted to go all the way, but the deal is the deal. I want to respond to the internet, right? Because you see a lot of conversations on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and these other platforms. And so there's sectors of the internet that they look at the Young Thug 15-year probationary period like it's unattainable, it's infeasible, it's impractical or unreachable. So I want to speak to the setup that people think is there, right? He has a lot of stipulations. He has geographical restrictions, community service, association restrictions. That's the one I think that it's going to be easy to slip up. Promotion restrictions. This can lend itself to him not being able to rap about what he wants to rap about, even under the guise of entertainment. This is, what does a controlled Young Thug sound like? They can't say slat. Again, I believe in the arenas that the fans are gonna, if he invokes them or if the song calls for that, they'll fill in the blanks. He got that kind of fan base. And by them trying to ban him from saying things, when you ban something, you only make it stronger. You can't the slime. You know what I'm saying? You can't the slack. You can't the slime. So you can let him not rap about it, but when they look at him, they know that's they know that's the guy. That's the dude that put Slime YSL Records on his back and when he made millionaires out of that have been in the ghetto doing nothing. When he took his talents and spreaded it amongst the industry, East, West Coast and all that, right? But I believe the promotion restrictions, right? The drug testing and all of that, those are things I can see being in the agreement. He doesn't have any restrictions on travel, but again, I want to focus on the promotion restrictions and the association restrictions. And so you're watching the tactics, right? A lot of fans think Thug is going to slip up with the promotion or the association because if they're saying gang members, hey, I ain't on no gang file. I ain't never been a part of no gang, so I don't know nothing about no gang file. But this is the trick of the judicial system. See, this is what I was telling about. Yo, I'll let you out, but in solitude and isolation. That's damn near like still being locked up. It's way better than being locked up. But now Thug got to reshape his whole social circle. All these that love him, they can't even come see him. Damn, what do they got you down part of what gang? Because if we dealing with Fulton County, let them tell it everybody at gang, Brian Steele. They maybe should have got in that a little more and try to, hold on, we got to carve out certain things as it pertains to business. Like all these, certain record labels that they may be trying to act like it's gangs. Like we proven that they're overzealous. We proved that they're obsessive. It's Fulton County's trick to keep them away from redacted and redacted and redacted and redacted. You dig what I'm saying? When that's the structure that he makes music with. Now, they're going to get creative and they can make music without it. Thug can shoot his over there and this person can shoot theirs over here. But maybe some more time should have been spent on carving that out. But I salute Brian Steele. And also, I salute Thugger Daily. Shout out to Thugger Daily. Thugger Daily has been on top of it. Salute to my girl, Megan Cunningham. She's been on the show. I'm going to have to get her back. Thug is now off trial. I think it's a good time. Salute to Megan. But Thugger Daily has been the source for Young Thug's trial. I mean, we can look at this two ways with Thug as it pertains to the promotion aspect of it. Because on one end, you can have part of the culture saying, they trying to make them sing without a soul. How do you rap without a resume? How do you rap without referencing your resume? Now, what this may do is force Thug into utilizing his voice for more positive means. And it may teach another generation of culture how to get back on some of that other shit. And so, because they saying he can't rap about gangbanging, that's cool. We can get back to the money. And see, like Baby, like that, they rap about getting money, money man. People like that, they rap about getting paper. Rollo Rodriguez, they rap about getting money. He can rap about getting some paper, but if they ain't gonna let him around them guys, how does that work? And is it a documented gang member in Fulton County or in the world? And how y'all gonna keep counting, keep up with? So if y'all see me in a picture next to a nigga's third row in at a club and he in the gang, do I get held liable for that when I'm in a club because this is what I get paid to do, right? There's questions that has to be spoke to when these kind of agreements are set forward, right? But you know what I'm saying? I think some of the unintentional consequences of them putting these kind of guardrails around Thug, if you're looking at it from the positive side and say, maybe this teaches the next wave. Maybe this grabs hold to the next wave and, let them know the importance of what they call getting money. I call acquiring funds or securing capital, accumulating wealth. But maybe this is the shift. Maybe all these things are happening at the same time to shift the culture into. Now, I do want to listen to the Young Thug part of this. Because I ain't going to lie, for a minute, I was thinking, man, they say that time of change and Thug was so charismatic before he went in. I had certain questions. But we'll get to those after we roll the tape. What we're about to look at is Young Thug accepting his plea in the state of Fulton County as he was arrested and charged with being the kingpin of YSL Records, what they were calling Young Slime Life, and they wanted to charge him with racketeering. The case fell apart. Here we are with Young Thug accepting his plea. Roll the tape.
Things like F the judge and I rep my life for real. That's not even said by Mr. Williams. But they don't care to find out. They are on a tunnel vision to try to convict a man who should not be convicted. The statement about I never killed nobody, but I got something to do with that body, as a Demise McMullen or a Mr. Cope to somebody. Mr. Williams responds by saying, we can do an album together if you want. Stop this. The man continues of how he's sleeping with Mr. Williams' significant other, and then Mr. Williams responds by saying, I would have killed you except for what you do. That is the context that they don't tell you about. And Mr. Williams did nothing to Mr. Bennett. In fact, the evidence would have shown, if we had time or we would have gone forward, that Mr. Bennett and Mr. Williams are on the red carpet receiving awards in California, sitting right next to each other and taking photographs. This is not the Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams is a known person who is all over the place. If he did something, somebody wanted him, they can find him.
By the state, which kind of gives you some idea of what they were looking for as well in terms of conditions on Mr. Williams if we were to ever reach some sort of agreement. And we ask that if you feel that there is anything within the state's proposal that might be appropriate in terms of the sentence for Mr. Williams, that the court please feel free to do that. There is nothing that he puts himself before the court. And I think 2.5 years sitting, going through this process, challenging the process, but now standing before you and asking that you consider everything and sentence him appropriately in the way that we've requested.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all their names, My managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just having so much time invested into this, and I am a smart guy, I am a good guy, and I really got a good heart, I find myself in a lot of stuff because I was just nice or cool, and I understand that you can't be that way when you reach a certain height because it could end bad. And it don't really have to have nothing to do with you, but it can end bad and it could, fall on you.
Number one, salute to Thug, for even getting up there speaking. I think that was imperative and important to the judge to hear from you. Man. I think that was so important, but to have the ability to be able to speak in those moments, right? A lot of y'all would have froze up. A lot of y'all would have been stuttering. And not handling that in the right way. And let me clarify, let me illuminate the scenario that this young dude is in. Everything is on the line. His lawyer is telling him we are winning the trial. What we're going to do right now is called a blind plea. That means we have no control over the outcome. And once you plead guilty, you can't give it back. So if she come back with 45 years, ain't nothing we can do but eat the 45 years up. And so for the boldness, the grit, the courage that it took to throw it all on the court. But you know what I was looking for, though? I ain't gonna lie. A little bit of me was in there hoping, man, don't let Thug talk different, man. Don't let me hear him for the first time and he done got rid of he got like a bounce with him. But you know what I'm saying? Because, he got like a bounce that he talked with and go to jail and come out squared from Delaware. Yeah, no, man. I said, man, don't let Thug come out square from Delaware from that time, man. I know that time was hard at a life sentence. They were trying to nail a to the cross, but God was good. You hear me? Yeah, man, God was good. But when he started talking, I said, oh, yeah, that's the same. That's the same. He finna get out, get him a Bentley, get him a new spot, move somewhere. Come on down to Nashville. We'll accept you down here. Keep you away from that. Get a whole bunch of land down here and post up down here. Yeah, I think Young Thug should move to Nashville. Down there with me and Jelly Roll, Theo, Vaughn. Come down here with us. We ain't doing all that old all that gang banging. We going down on Broadway having a good time at the Jelly Bar, at the Barstool Bar. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah, man, we ain't getting it. Come on, man, move down to Nashville. You understand me? Move on the outskirts, spend you $2-3 million, get you some size of the hospital. You understand me? And then move your old lady down here with you, your family down here with you. You understand? You can raise your kids down here. The schools are good. You dig what I'm saying? And stay out of trouble. Because they done kicked him out of Atlanta. But pay attention, though. Again, I think this is an imperative part of the conversation where Young Thug is explaining to the judge, yo, man, I got in this situation because I was being cool. I was just trying to be cool, and now maybe these was doing but, man, you know I was a multi-millionaire. What I look like out there doing that shit? Now, was them little around me 5150? Yana, I'm sorry. Man, I had some 5150 around me, man. And Yana, I apologize for that. Of course, y'all know I'm joking. Pay attention.
I know the choice is yours. It's up to you. And I hope that you allow me to go home today and just trust in me to just do the right thing and never see you again unless it's at a bar in the future or something. Just out of this type of situation, I promise you I won't ever be in this type of situation again. I'm going away. I've learned from my mistakes. I come from nothing and I've made something and I didn't take full advantage of it. I'm sorry. Through these last 2.5 years of my life, you are really, truly, honestly, the best thing that has happened to me because you made everything fair for me and everybody involved on both sides, I'm sorry to the sheriff, everybody for just having to put extra time in. I know y'all got paid more money, but I'm sorry for y'all having to put this extra time in to be away from y'all family, and I just hope that you find it in your heart to allow me to go home and be with my family and just do better as a person. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I am. I know the heights I've reached. I know the impact I got.
This still is a podcast now. Now, while Thug is giving a heartfelt message to the judge, I do want to draw your attention to the elephant in the room and feed him some peanuts. Man, I know Yak got in him in the background because I'm looking at his face. He looking like, man, the money leaving, the cameras leaving, all that leaving. Like, is they still gonna do right by me? Because when Thug in there, it's eyes on it. Because when the Grammy Award winning Jeffrey Williams, Young Thug is on the trial, it's eyes on it. It's under scrutiny. It's a certain level of visibility it come with. But if you the last two people, Yak got it, and the other guy, you looking like, man, is the cameras gonna even show up Monday? Is still gonna be doing videos? Is they still gonna be getting views? Because you got to think the level of superstar Thug was, he fed a lot of them YouTube for 18 months. Right? I speak on things that I care about. I don't speak on that every day and make money off of it, even if I look at it every day. Because I look at that every day. I was watching these trials, all of them, but I never streamed it. That's me not taking advantage of my eyes because my eyes literally begs me to stream it. The few days I did stream the Young Thug trial, literally my said, stream it tomorrow. We need you doing this. I haven't got there in my journey yet. But a lot of the YouTube guys literally fed their families and bought cars and houses off of Young Thug being in jail. Now, this helps Thug because the level of media attention on it keeps everything honest. But you don't get that level of attention for 18 months, 2 years straight. In the hip hop community, the attention span is way too short for that. You don't get those sectors that live in the hip hop community like that unless you one of the ours. And because Thug was one of ours, we would have conversations surrounding what was happening in the trial and how it was unfair. We'll get to media in a second, how some of these guys now have flipped the switch. Now it seems like they're saying, yo, free Thug and I'm happy he's home, when they were advocating and saying that he should get life. He done it. He'd 100% going to jail, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to salute the media people who were covering this case, from a genuine standpoint. The money came with it. Salute the Cuff Boys. Salute to Thugger Daily. These are the two that I mainly watch for my updates, but there was a number of them. Like it was a lot of you guys out there that really held it down for Thug and make sure that visibility was out there. I was someone that was having conversations on a high level about the trial, and every time I had a conversation, they'd do 400,000-500,000. So, you know, my impact was there as well. But some of y'all dedicated every single day of your life to that Young Thug trial, and it helped. But the new question now is, what y'all gonna do now? Huh? Yeah, it's time for a real question. What y'all gonna do now? We salute you for the work you done, but now what? You know, what do your channel evolve to? What do you emerge as? Right? Yeah, now salute for Thug, but now what? Your channel, you got a whole bunch of Young Thug fans. What do y'all do now? Because one thing about YouTube, it's harsh when it drop off. If you're a that's making 20, 30, 40 grand and them views go down and you see 7, 8, 9, 10,000, that shit hurt. That shit like, oh my God, you panic as a businessman. So a lot of these guys are going to see a dramatic hit in their channels now that Thug is out. And it's unfortunate, but just like some of the crime channels on TV, there's a subsection of the culture that thrives on the downfall of the rappers and other black people and other people, content creators or what have you. Your downfall is where they live. Even for me in this Young Thug conversation, you hear me speak about the business. How does he now do music with other rappers in the game? You know what I'm saying? How much money is he really going to be able to make? And what does a soulless Young Thug sound like, right? What does a Young Thug without rapping about his resume sound like? His first album and not being able to speak about the trial. Psych, they didn't say that. He can't talk about gangs. That don't mean he can't say the prosecutors tried to tie me up. The prosecutors tried to, right? That don't mean he can't go there right now, just so y'all clear. So Thug got a lot to talk about. He don't got to say slat and slime and say nothing about gang banging. But he just went through a lot the last 2 years. They were literally bringing his records into the justice system and using them as evidence. You got to remember the gravity of that. Pay attention.
Period. In the community, you know, all people, I learned that late. Like these past 2 or 3 years of my life, I kind of learned that late, and maybe it was because I was, you know, probably on drugs or anything, I don't know. But I have came to my senses and I understand what I mean to this world. But I am a good guy, you know. I don't mind doing stuff like, you know, like free shows, and I always did that. You know, I did free shows and gave it to single parents, millions of dollars. You know, I made $1.8 million on a free show, and I gave it all to single parent charity. And I did like 2 or 3 shows that made like $700,000 a piece, and I gave it to the breast cancer organization. Like, you know, I do things. Like, I put millions of dollars back into my community for real. I really did. I did more than anybody ever did from my side, you know. But I understand, you know, rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you I'm 100% changing that. You know, it's just, I'm older, I'm grown now, you know, and it's just like, I'm smarter. It's more things to rap about. Like, I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I experienced a lot of good things too. And anyway, I can go forever. Well,
I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood. It's worldwide, especially young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living in and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool, this is what I want to do, look at him, he's a millionaire, I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison. And those are, you know, by far the most likely outcomes. And, you know, you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and another teenager. And that's what gangs do, and that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know, but I know you're talented, and even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the...
Look at the state mad. See, one thing about the lawyer, you know by her sequence of statements where she's going. By her even saying, even when this is over and you continue to rap, if you're gonna, that's already telling Brian Steele she gonna let him out. Now it's about listening to the conditions. But I want you to know that these lawyers, when hearing her speak to Thug like this, they already know what the vibes is. He get to come home.
You know, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, you know, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. I mean, all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go on. But I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem. All right? All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, you know, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration and crafting my sentence. And
man, which one of y'all say I ain't the coldest with this? Who remember 18 months ago when I came out and said, yo, Gunner, don't take the plea. Take that deal back in front of the judge and say, yo, Yana, this man got one charge. With his signature, they would have let him out. It's completely unfair. At least he deserves a bond, and the judge would have probably let him out. But his lawyer didn't say that, and they went ahead and took the deal. Yo, if my signature can get me out on the streets today with no stipulations, I should be able to have a bond. That means you ain't necessarily hung up on a conviction. But when they say I ain't the best at peeping game, man, come on, man, be for real.
Low plea to the RICO count and one of the two gang counts. I would not be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve.
When it was all said and done, he got out with the 15 years with the special conditions that we've been speaking about here today. We wish Doug luck on his journey. Of course, at some point, we'll have a conversation. But yeah, man, you know, he has an opportunity to get back out here, make money, be a positive influence in the culture, and also get back to him. You know, I think a conversation is to be had about the control that's in place, right? And what that's going to look like, how that's going to materialize in the music. Also on the internet, they're making a big thing about him requesting to do music with Gunna. Look, his scenario with Gunna is for him and Gunna to work out. What I do find unfortunate is that Thug, one of the most influential rappers from the South, from Atlanta in particular, takes a plea after being locked up on RICO charges where they unfairly were using music, quoting lyrics and other things that, according to his lawyer, wasn't even his lyrics. In some kind of way, the trolls online have Lil Baby trending. And so there's a conversation around the Lil Baby, Gunna, and Young Thug scenario. So I think we can tackle that conversation today. I ain't gonna lie, man. When it comes to me, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to me, I rarely like to take time to have communication and conversation and dialogue with the uninformed, the ill-advised, the irrational, the naive, or the unintelligent. But I got time today. I need for people to explain to me, what is the Lil Baby, Thug, and Gunna conversation even about? From my viewpoint, from our viewpoint, from a lot of people's viewpoint that's watching this, is that you're watching Young Thug with his life in the balance of the state and nobody knows what's going on. Right? Gunna can feel how Gunna want to feel. You know, Gunna, Thug, Baby, I don't know what's about to happen. Really, don't nobody know how Thug taking it, right? Y'all are going off of what's being asked in his agreement, but you don't know his thought process on the song. If Gunna emerged from the inner city and the trap like everybody else, did he know what he was up against? He know that that Lil Thug was gonna feel a certain kind of way about him, doing whatever that was that he done. If Thug decide to get back with Gunna and be cool with Gunna, they brothers, that's their business. But Gunna can't be mad at Baby if you ask me. Cause since when your homie get locked up and showing allegiance was a bad thing? When did that go viral? When did displaying devotion to your partner that went down the road, when did that become not cool or not the thing to do? Upholding loyalty. Standing for your homie. When did that not become something that was cool? So for me, there's no way that this is even a conversation. Whatever they work out, they work out. Again, we don't know what the position on it is. If him and Gunna get back together, salute to them. Thug is the one that got a better cross that whatever happened to him, he the one got to wear that. You see what I'm saying? You got to ask yourself, what games will Fulton County play? Like if you do a song with a that's on a gang file that you don't even know about, man, I don't know that dude a gang file. Yo, the label sent $500,000 for that song. I ain't around that dude, but there's some music that come out and use my likeness. Y'all gonna control my brand? That's just like season my brand. There's a thin line between control and seasoning. Again, so my question is, how does that guilty plea play into a federal case, if at all? And did he plead guilty to something that the feds can play with in the event that they try to play games? Of course, we knock on wood and hope that that's never the case. But two, it's almost like confiscation of the brand. If, I can't really rap about what I want to rap about, I'm kind of controlled and I can't even make money along the fellow people in the industry that may have gang ties. But let's be honest, America. A lot of people don't have gang ties. I know, the rap world, all these guys want to act like they some well-known gang leader. But a lot of these guys ain't on no gang file. So Thug will be all right. He'll be able to be around some of these dudes. And it ain't no stripe to be on no gang file. Don't let them trick you that it's some kind of stripe to be on a gang file. And so sometimes we carry the wrong cross. Yo, little homie, that ain't your cross to bear. You know what I'm saying? All you was, all you meant to your community and your family and all that was that you was a gang leader. We don't want to with those stripes on our back. It got to be transformation for us to celebrate that. Because what that says to me is they tricked you and put you in a maze and you couldn't find your way out. And we want to celebrate those that find their way out, not leaving anyone. And not laughing at those that's having a hard time, but we celebrate those that find their way out of the maze. And so sometimes you don't hear me be as critical on some of these individuals as other people is because I understand the maze, the trap they call it. And so for the uninformed, the naive, and the underachievers, allow someone that got just a little bit more seasoned to explain to you some of the things that you encounter or you may see happening amongst the culture. But everything ain't for everybody. And I'll say that with gratitude to the people that's involved in watching my content, because everything is not for everybody. Some of these people are unbearable for me to listen to. And I'll spare you of their names because it'll have them making content for 6 months. Right? Some of these individuals are struggling to get 100 views, 1,000 views, 5,000 people tuned in. When you have 3,000 or 4,000 paying subscribers and customers, and it's rough for you to understand how to get to the 100,000. See, when I look at people like, and we finna get out of here because I'm off on a tangent, but when I look at certain individuals, because I can see their Patreon numbers now. There's a tool where you can see their Patreon numbers. And so, me and some of my counterparts, we're doing this race to 6,000 Patreon subscribers, but some of these people got 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. You dig? Just think about 100,000. That's a mini Netflix, man. You know the kind of level of stuff I start producing. We'll start having movies. We'll start having, like, bro, I ain't even gonna get a salsa, but we'll start having so many different things if we can get that many people on Patreon. And so for those that really believe in the movement, you have to come somewhere where your money and you're subscribing to the platform, because that's the only way we'll be able to really enhance your experience as a person that engages with the content to get through your day. And it don't take a lot, but it take consistency, right? Because we're building it brick by brick, and we don't look for, although we're in the industry, we don't look for any leg up from the industry, because for a lot of individuals, we just so happen to be the competition. And so, you know, we don't take it a certain way. You know, I blame it on their head, not to their heart, because they don't know that they can't stop a train no matter what they put on the railroad tracks. The only person that can stop the train is the conductor. And so you got to be careful what you put on the train tracks that's trying to stop this here train, right? Because whatever get obliterated, it doesn't stand a chance on the tracks that I'm headed down. And so I encourage the people that has placed themselves on the other side of being. And so for those who do not consider themselves a teammate of mine, I just want to send a PSA, and that excludes nobody. There is no hard feelings, and there will be no disrespect. But we're building this thing brick by brick. It's Up There Podcast. I really appreciate y'all. See y'all on the next episode. Bye.